Hello and welcome to Ticket Manager's All Access interview series, engaging leaders from across the sports marketing spectrum to identify and explore critical issues in the business of sports, entertainment, sponsorship, activation, ticketing, hospitality, and even more. I'm your host, Jim Andrews. Joining me on this episode to discuss and share the story of a really fascinating challenger brand in a highly competitive sector and how it's using sports to disrupt its category is Charles Nieves, Vice President of Marketing for GameDay Vodka. Welcome, Charles.
Happy to be here, Jim.
Right, I'm happy to have you. So, Charles, if I have it right, your origin story with GameDay is really interesting. You were in a role with Learfield IMG, representing the University of Miami Hurricanes, and you approached the brand about becoming a partner, and now you're running marketing for them. So, can you kind of walk us through how all that came to be?
Yeah, interesting process, but started as a traditional sales process would. Got comfortable with the product by seeing it at retail. Saw that it had a similar colorway to the Miami Hurricanes team colorway. Reached out to a local seller and just learned as much as possible about the product. Talked about how we could potentially work together to add IP to their point of sale and their branding opportunities, and how it could help them, build a more resonant messaging. And, Jim, from that conversation led to a broader conversation with leadership, to another conversation with Learfield national sales team, which ended up resulting in the first ever spirits deal with IP use across the country in the NCAA space.
And then obviously somewhere along the way, they were so impressed with you, they said, "Hey, Charles, you want to come over to our side?" Is that pretty much what happened?
Well, I wouldn't say happened like that, but I'll tell you, as the deals start to close up and, you have that, celebratory glass of game day cranberry, and, you get about halfway through it and you're like, hey, you put a lot of time and effort and passion into putting together a deal. You had a lot of fun, selling on the college and nonprofit side for 13 years. Just seemed like a natural opportunity to head to the other side of the table and continue to build something that I truly believe in. And that's, supporting the college space, and also learn as much as possible about our NFL partners and NFL deals, but also work with people that I've got to know really, really well over my tenure in the industry.
That's great. I really, really love that story. And I want to come back a little bit later and talk about what that transition from kind of seller to buyer, if you will, has been like. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about GameDay, because it's a really, really interesting brand. You currently have, as you mentioned, about a dozen sponsorships between NFL teams and college athletic programs. And also the brand continues to do the colorways, which I think is the way most of us, like you, have seen that in our favorite team's colors. That's the way they've been connecting with fans. So in a perfect world, I'm imagining, you just have official status sponsorships with every team, but obviously that's unrealistic. Nobody's got the budget for that. So how are you now making decisions on where to invest in partnerships? In which markets it's okay to just kind of go ahead with the colorway program? How do you determine what gets what?
Yeah, a lot of trial and error over the past 6 months to a year. We've learned a lot. There's a lot more that goes into our decision making process now than maybe 6 to 8 months ago. We'll look at if the market is a vodka heavy market, what the opportunity is with the local teams, what the competitors doing in the space. There's a great relationship with the distributor. I mean, there's just so many different aspects that we look at to enter a market. Right now we have 16 team partnerships in just over 15 markets. And in 2022, we'll look to double markets, but will we double partnerships? No, right? We'll be very strategic about what's worked for us and what hasn't. And the first 16 deals that we acquired, right? And with that, hope to get better with less. We look at, our activation, what we can do on site with an individual partner. Does this market support the team? A bunch, Jim. And it's been fun to learn that process through what's been a great first year.
That's great. And I want to get into some of the specifics on the activation. But before we do that, basically, obviously, the sports angle is critical for this brand, attracting fans through the deals, through the association with the teams. But just overall, what are your brand's marketing objectives now? Still relative newcomer in the space. What are you looking to accomplish? Awareness, trial. What are those objectives?
Trial kind of leads the way. People will automatically, if it is a team colorway, be attracted to the bottle. And then we have that conversation about who we are and where we're distilled and why we're better, and then say, why we think you should give us a shot. And the next question is always, well, how does it taste? Right. So what we know is, folks aren't just going out every day looking to try a new vodka. Right. So if we can get them to experience us, we truly believe that we have a really good and smooth vodka. Right. So once that happens, the affinity is already there for whatever team that, we're engaging or using to engage at the time, or whatever, restaurant experience you're having, where our icon matte black bottle is behind the bar and we're on a featured cocktail and there to have a conversation about it. Whatever that experience is, now we're 2 for 2. We taste better, and we've built a resonant relationship with you. And from there, we have to continue to drive the awareness and the conversion, right? Which will be hand in hand for us. Continue to be there at every game, continue to be there at every watch party, continue to be there, all those lifestyle moments of a fan that happen throughout the week leading up to what is subsequently game day.
And then kind of translating that, as you say, seeing the bottle, seeing the colors, and actually being able to tell that story. I'm imagining that's through a lot of different channels, whether it's on premise, the people who are actually behind the bar, or whether it's social or traditional kind of advertising media. Is that all in the mix?
Absolutely. Beyond our team sponsorships and what we're able to do on game day and in the building with the rights, we do build a robust portfolio program of how we engage both on and off premise with point of sale, how we train staff members and team members, brand ambassadors, what have you, at the local level to talk about our product, what the opportunities are to engage, whether it's on game day or off game day, how we can help support our local partners and vendors through our social channels and or through there. So definitely a 360-degree approach, if you will. And while it may skew a lot heavier towards experiential and getting lips to sips, it definitely is supplemented by all channels throughout the marketing spectrum.
Lips to sips. I have to remember that one. It's a good one. So let's talk about then that game day, literally game day experience, the on-site activation, as you mentioned, and just the activations in general that you have, around your partnerships. And I'm guessing also that there, obviously are going to be bit differences between your collegiate partnerships as well as then versus the NFL partnerships. Yeah,
we tend to try to stay in a few pillars that are highly dominated by IP designation and use of marks and logos, but experiential. What we can't do is just put our name in lights and hope that everyone will see us and subsequently go to their on or off premise, retail locations and think about, game day vodka. But what we can do is, be that disruptor that's in the fan zone playing defense a little bit, like, hey, look at us, leading up to the Giants, right? Looking up like, hey, we're down here pulling at the coattail, if you will. And through that, be able to engage fans in a way that they haven't before. We firmly believe that every day is game day, not just on the physical and actual game day. So to be able to, follow that, passion point into the home throughout the week, to be able to do it at the bar with your friends when your team's away, we really see that as a competitive advantage that we have to engage at the local level.
Anything specific coming up? We're talking early in the year. Any plans, anything we should be looking out for? Absolutely.
We'll look at diversifying our product line, more details to come on that over the next couple of weeks, but, a lot of opportunity to spread game day, if you will, throughout other aspects of game day, but also just from a growth perspective, look at, how we launch different and new emerging markets in Q1. We'll try to double 15 to 30 and beyond. Additional retail partners. How do we engage larger and more franchise broad perspectives across the country as we enter California and Arizona and Minneapolis and markets like that. So a lot of opportunity for growth, a lot of opportunity for learning. We'll take everything we did this past year and look at how we translate that into further success through benchmarks in 2022.
You mentioned that kind of tugging on the coattails of Giants. So I have to ask. I had Ed Pilkington on the podcast recently from Diageo talking about their relatively new partnership with the NFL. Was that something that when you saw that they had signed that deal, was it like, oh boy, that's going to put a crimp in some of our plans, or are you just kind of like, well, we just have to work with what we've got?
Yeah, I think if anything, it deserved a conversation, and we had one internally, and I think the consensus was it was reassuring that brands like that are still investing in sports in such a large way at the most broad and most respected level, right? What it allowed us to do was look at where there was opportunity at the grassroots level. And, hopefully through experience, both on the spirits and the sports side, we collectively built partnerships that allowed us to still have an opportunity to win in our space, right? And we're not out there competing with, any national or global brand. That's not the class that we're in right now. Like we're going to punch at our weight class, but there's still an opportunity to be won. And that's what we feel like we've done at the local level with our team partnerships, both in the NCAA and NFL.
We talked about this from a consumer focus, and is that really the focus for you right now? Is kind of using the partnerships for B2C, or are there any kind of business to business elements to this in terms of hospitality, helping to build that? As you say, you've got to build retail partnerships and things like that. Does that factor into the partnerships at all?
Sure. I mean, we leverage our partnerships to drive sales, on off premise, but also to build better relationships, whether it's with the building or, with our distributors. So being able to, build relationships and have assets at your disposal that make sense and drive behavior and get folks excited locally. We're still a very lean team as a startup brand of 25, but growing extremely rapidly and need to be able to understand the nuances of the local level. So to be able to leverage those, inventory pieces that we acquire through teams to drive behavior in the market is critical.
On the collegiate side of things, Charles, has there been any kind of pushback, or have we really kind of gone beyond the point? I've been around long enough. I remember when spirits and even beer with collegiate athletics rather was a bit of a no-no, but we seem to have, I think, moved past that. We've seen a lot of deals, certainly yours included. So how is that kind of playing out? Do you get any kind of pushback, or do you have to do things a little bit differently in the collegiate space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's evolving at a slower pace, albeit, and I think the advantage that I've been able to have was part of teams that helped build it out, or part of programs that pitched it throughout my career at Learfield. So Miami being one of the few properties across the country that have been able to advertise and allow advertisement within the spirits category. I kind of have a tutorial of it, for the past 3 years during my tenure with the Canes. So what we were able to do on that side of it was show success of where it's worked, right? So I've sent that case study to our national team year after year. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we could be doing. And over time, universities have been more open to allow, with very strict guidelines in advertising to legal drinking age, right? To allow us to partner and use their marks and logos. Crawl, walk, run though, Jim. It started here. I can say over the football season, more opportunities were provided to us as we enhanced fan experience and helped drive more engagement online and did all those things that athletic departments want to do. We can see these partnerships continue to grow year over year. With now the question is, hey, what are you doing at Texas A&M and Florida State that's so successful that we can do at this university? And if we give them a list of 5 and 2 come back, then great, we're better off than we were the previous year.
That's the great thing in marketing. We can always borrow from success stories, like you said. And as soon as somebody sees that, hey, it can be done, it can be done the right way, responsibly, with the guidelines in place, and it can achieve results, then everybody will be wanting to do it. So we talked before about kind of the transition that you made. So I do want to wrap up with that question of, as somebody who's marketed partnerships and is now on the brand side, I'd love for you to share first, what are your the best and worst aspects of your current role? What do you like most? What do you like least? And what do you miss the most and the least about your former positions?
Well, as someone who spent their childhood between Boston, Mass, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina, I had very clear and decisive team affinities growing up. And although most of my teams were winning championships, I knew every day who it was my team and who was my rival and who we kind of liked and who we did. And I could experience game day from the true vantage of a fan. Now, as much as I try to support our partners, right? You won't catch me cheering for the other team in your stadium. If we're investing in the program, if we're investing with the partner, I want to be so bought in that I understand the nuances of its fans as well. And so I found myself, and this is the best and the worst, I found myself being less and less tied to one particular team for whatever reason, which is tough because I like being able to raise that flag. But the good thing is now we have so many to cheer for, and I'm being able to learn from each and every one about how fans are different and how communities are different and how we can go in and support each and every team. So gift and a curse a bit, but it's been a fun and wild ride so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can recall in a previous role having the opportunity to work with the biggest rival of my favorite NFL team, and just really on an emotional level, like, boy, am I really gonna be able to do this? But you put your professional hat on and you go about your business.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, and my wife may not like it, but there's a lot more hats in the closet right now, and they get used often.
I can imagine. Well, Charles, really appreciate you taking a few minutes to walk us through, like I said, what is a very interesting story in GameDay Vodka. Wish you nothing but success this year and beyond, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye out for the new developments you've got coming down the road.
Appreciate you, Jim.
All right, and on behalf of everyone at Ticket Manager, thank all of you for watching and listening, and please join us again for the next episode in the All Access interview series.